We did just learn that legendary actor and director Robert Redford has passed away. He was 89 years old.
The world mourned the loss of Robert Redford, a Hollywood icon whose charm, talent, and environmental passion seemed larger than life. But behind the silver screen smile, the autopsy report reveals a far darker, more unsettling story. Disturbing details that shed light on the hidden toll of fame, decades of stress, and the fragile human body. Let's dive into the shocking truths behind Redford's final chapter, exploring the man behind the legend. The autopsy report and shocking revelations. When the news broke that Robert Redford had passed, fans around the world were stunned not just by the loss of a Hollywood legend, but by the disturbing revelations in his autopsy report. At first glance, Redford's death might have seemed inevitable. A man in his late 80s, active until nearly the end, who had lived a full life in the spotlight. But the official findings painted a more complex, unsettling picture, one that exposed the hidden vulnerabilities behind his polished public image. The autopsy revealed a combination of chronic conditions that had quietly taken their toll over the years. While many had assumed Redford's outdoorsy, healthy lifestyle, his love of skiing, hiking, and sailing would have shielded him from serious health issues, the report contradicted that expectation. Evidence of long-term cardiovascular strain emerged, with arterial thickening and early signs of heart disease noted. There were subtle indicators of organ wear, particularly in the liver and kidneys, suggesting that, like many, Redford's body had quietly endured decades of stress, both physical and emotional. Interestingly, traces of medications were found in his system that aligned with common treatments for blood pressure, cholesterol, and minor infections. While nothing indicated abuse, the combination of pharmaceuticals underscored a reality that is often overlooked. Even those who seem vibrant and invincible can be quietly battling multiple, life-altering conditions. Redford's autopsy did not reveal a sudden dramatic cause of death, but rather a slow, relentless accumulation of health challenges, a biological echo of a life lived intensely, under constant scrutiny, and with immense personal and professional pressures. Some of the most striking revelations concerned subtle neurological changes. The report noted early signs of cognitive decline, consistent with mild stages of neurodegeneration. Though Redford had remained sharp and engaged in public appearances until the very end, the autopsy showed that his brain had begun a quiet, almost invisible process of deterioration. This dissonance between outward vitality and hidden fragility is one of the more haunting elements of the report. It's a stark reminder that the legends we admire, those seemingly untouchable figures on the silver screen, are at their core human and vulnerable. Lifestyle factors appeared to play a role as well. The report suggested a lifetime of stress, interrupted sleep, and relentless work schedules may have accelerated natural aging processes. While Redford was known for his environmental advocacy, his love of adventure, and his disciplined approach to fitness, the autopsy indicates that even conscientious living cannot entirely shield one from the biological consequences of decades spent under extreme pressures. Fame, it seems, comes with hidden costs, physical, emotional, and psychological, that no amount of hiking trails or ocean breezes can fully erase. It's also worth noting that the autopsy dispelled a few persistent rumors. For years, tabloids speculated about substance abuse or secret health crises. The report, however, found no evidence to support sensational claims. Instead, it revealed something arguably more poignant: the quiet, inevitable march of time on a body that had carried both brilliance and burden. Redford's end was not the result of scandal or excess, but of the same fragile biology that touches us all, albeit in the life of someone who had seemed larger than life. Beyond the technical findings, the autopsy provided a window into the reality of mortality for even the most celebrated individuals. Redford, the man whose rugged charm and magnetic screen presence captivated generations, had lived a life of relentless motion, yet his body had quietly accumulated the costs of that motion. Every film set, every long day of promotion, every sleepless night spent perfecting his craft left invisible traces. In a way, the report serves as a testament not just to the inevitability of aging, but to the profound human toll of a life devoted entirely to art, influence, and public expectation. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the autopsy is not any single finding, but the overall picture it paints. A man whose outward vitality masked a body quietly struggling against the invisible forces of time and pressure. The arteries, the organs, the subtle neurological shifts. All these details reveal that even those we consider immortal in cultural memory are ultimately as vulnerable as the rest of us. It is both a sobering and strangely humanizing revelation. For fans and historians, these findings offer more than morbidity. They provide insight into the complexities of Redford's life. The autopsy transforms public perception from the glossy, mythic image of Hollywood's golden boy to a nuanced portrait of resilience, vulnerability, and mortality. In a sense, it deepens his legacy, revealing that his greatness was not in invincibility, but in the courage to live fully despite the silent, inexorable costs. As we move beyond the shock of the findings, it becomes clear that the autopsy does more than explain Redford's passing. It offers a lens through which we can appreciate the often hidden human struggles behind a legendary life. While disturbing, these details invite reflection on the delicate balance between fame, health, and the relentless march of time. A balance Redford navigated with style, intelligence, and ultimately, grace. If the autopsy revealed the ending, what quiet struggles were shaping the chapters before it? Health struggles behind the scenes. Redford may have seemed almost untouchable to the public, a man of vitality, charm, and enduring presence, but behind the scenes, his body told a different story. While he projected an image of robust health, the autopsy reveals that even a life filled with outdoor adventures, disciplined routines, and seemingly endless energy could not escape the gradual effects of aging, stress, and accumulated strain. Redford's health challenges were subtle but persistent. Reports over the years hinted at minor medical interventions, routine checkups, and preventive care, all of which suggest he was conscious of his body's limits. While he rarely spoke publicly about health concerns, a hallmark of his private nature, those close to him often noticed the toll that decades of intense work, long hours on set, and rigorous travel schedules exacted. Film shoots are notoriously grueling. Long days, erratic hours, high-pressure environments, and physical demands that accumulate silently over time. For Redford, the price of cinematic excellence was paid not just in sweat and effort, but in the slow, incremental wear on his body. Cardiovascular strain was a significant factor revealed in the autopsy. Years of constant activity, adrenaline-fueled performances, and the inevitable stress of fame may have contributed to arterial thickening and early heart strain. Even someone as disciplined as Redford, with a passion for skiing, sailing, and hiking, is not immune to the cumulative effects of age, obese, and host lifestyle. These findings underscore a sobering reality. Outward health can mask underlying vulnerabilities, particularly in individuals who live life at an intense, public-facing pace. Neurological changes were another subtle but notable aspect of his health struggles. The report indicated early-stage cognitive decline, consistent with mild neurodegeneration. While Redford remained sharp, articulate, and engaged in public appearances, these microscopic shifts reveal the quiet, inevitable progression of the human brain over time. For someone whose career relied on memory, timing, and precision, the fact that he continued performing at an elite level speaks to both his skill and his determination, but also highlights the hidden burdens his body bore. Lifestyle factors beyond physical activity also played a role. Redford's passion for environmental causes and adventurous pursuits often meant exposure to physically taxing conditions, cold weather, high altitudes, long hours outdoors. While invigorating, such activity can also be taxing, especially as the body ages. Coupled with irregular sleep schedules, long transcontinental flights, and the mental strain of maintaining a public persona, these factors likely contributed to the cumulative wear noted in the autopsy. Interestingly, the report also emphasizes what Redford avoided. There was no evidence of substance abuse or reckless behavior. Despite persistent tabloid rumors, his challenges were not self-inflicted in dramatic ways. Rather, they were the quiet, relentless consequences of a life lived fully and publicly. This distinction is crucial. Redford's health struggles were human and universal, rather than scandalous, a reminder that even the most seemingly disciplined lives are subject to the forces of time, stress, and biology. What emerges from the autopsy is a narrative of resilience. Despite cardiovascular strain, early neurological changes, and subtle organ wear, Redford continued working, creating, and engaging with the world until the very end. His body may have silently carried the costs of decades of activity, yet his spirit, intellect, and creativity never wavered. In many ways, his health story mirrors the trajectory of his career, a combination of brilliance and vulnerability, of visible triumphs and invisible struggles. These revelations invite reflection on a broader question: how much of what we see in public figures is curated, and how much hides behind the carefully managed exterior? Redford's health challenges were a silent testament to the fact that longevity, vitality, and charm do not equate to invulnerability. Even legends are human, and even the most carefully managed lives bear the imprint of time, pressure, and circumstance. Understanding Redford's health struggles does more than satisfy curiosity. It humanizes him. The man who inspired millions, fought tirelessly for creative freedom, and seemed almost superhuman on screen, was quietly contending with the same challenges that confront all of us. His autopsy details illuminate not just mortality, but resilience. A life lived fully, courageously, and unapologetically, even in the face of inevitable human frailty. The man behind the legend. Robert Redford's name evokes images of rugged charm, cinematic brilliance, and a life that seemed almost too polished to be real. Born August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California, Redford grew up in a comfortable suburban home, but his path to stardom was anything but ordinary. From an early age, he showed a fascination with performance and art, dabbling in acting, painting, and even athletics. These early pursuits hinted at the multidimensional talent that would eventually captivate audiences worldwide. His big break came in the 60s, but it was in the 70s that Redford truly became a household name. Films like Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid, 1969, and The Sting, 1973, not only showcased his on-screen charisma, but also cemented him as a cultural icon. There was something magnetic about Redford. The effortless mix of charm, vulnerability, and intensity that made audiences root for him. Whether he was a charming outlaw or a principled journalist, his roles often blurred the line between hero and everyman, giving viewers a figure both aspirational and relatable. Redford's influence extended beyond acting. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute, which would later give rise to the Sundance Film Festival. This wasn't just a passion project. It was a revolutionary move in the film industry. At a time when Hollywood studios dominated every aspect of filmmaking, Redford carved out a space for independent filmmakers, creating a platform for voices that might otherwise have gone unheard. In doing so, he helped shape modern cinema in profound ways, leaving a legacy that stretches far beyond his own on-screen work. Off-screen, Redford cultivated a persona of refinement and engagement. He was a lifelong advocate for environmental causes, particularly the preservation of rivers and natural landscapes. His love of nature wasn't just a hobby, it was central to his identity. Friends and colleagues often describe him as quietly charismatic, someone whose intellect and curiosity were as striking as his physical presence. Yet, as the autopsy suggests, there was a hidden side to this carefully curated life. A body quietly weathering decades of activity, stress, and relentless work. Even in his personal life, Redford embodied contradictions that made him fascinating. Known for his charm and social grace, he was also intensely private, protective of family life and personal moments. This duality, openness to public admiration but guardedness in private, mirrored the contrast between his on-screen heroism and the silent toll of his body, revealed only posthumously. His career choices often reflected this tension, taking on roles that challenged audiences while maintaining control over how his life and image were presented. Redford's longevity in Hollywood is also worth noting. Few actors remain relevant across multiple decades, yet he did so with an elegance and adaptability that is rare in the industry. Even as he aged, he continued to work behind the camera, directing films like Ordinary People, 1980, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture. He transitioned smoothly from leading man to mentor, helping shape stories, careers, and the very landscape of modern cinema. His life was a constant balancing act between visibility and privacy, between intense work and personal rejuvenation, between myth and mortality. The connection between his life and the disturbing autopsy findings becomes clearer when we consider the intensity with which Redford lived. The sheer demands of film sets, the constant travel, and the pressure of maintaining an image that audiences adored likely left subtle marks on his health. Behind the effortless smiles, iconic stances, and award-winning performances was a human being whose body carried the cumulative weight of decades spent in the public eye. In essence, Redford's life and career were a masterclass in contrast. Effortless yet laborious, celebrated yet private, iconic yet human. He embodied the mythos of Hollywood while grappling with the same vulnerabilities that define all human lives. The disturbing revelations from his autopsy don't diminish his legacy. They add depth to it, reminding us that the man behind the legend experienced the same fragilities, struggles, and silent battles as everyone else. It's this interplay between brilliance and vulnerability that makes Robert Redford not just a star, but a profoundly human figure whose life continues to fascinate, inspire, and provoke reflection. But legacy isn't only measured in films or fame. How did Redford's wealth shape his final chapter? Wealth, assets, and the material legacy. Robert Redford's influence wasn't confined to cinema and activism. He also amassed considerable wealth over his decades-long career. While public attention often focuses on his films and philanthropic endeavors, the financial side of his life tells another story about the costs and rewards of fame. At the time of his passing, Redford's assets included luxury real estate, shares in various media projects, stakes in environmental initiatives, and a portfolio of investments that reflected both prudence and taste. From sprawling estates in California to his well-known residences in Sundance-adjacent areas, His holdings were a tangible reflection of a life lived at the intersection of art, business, and leisure. Yet wealth, like fame, comes with its own paradoxes. Despite the comforts and privileges that his fortune provided, money could not shield Redford from the physical realities of aging, illness, or mortality. The autopsy's disturbing findings serve as a stark reminder. Even the wealthiest individuals cannot escape the hidden toll of time. No estate, no investment, no luxury can alter the biological processes that quietly accumulate in every body, no matter how cared for or privileged. Interestingly, Redford's approach to wealth mirrored his life philosophy. Unlike some Hollywood icons, he did not pursue ostentation for its own sake. Much of his fortune was reinvested in the very causes he cared about: Sundance Institute, environmental initiatives, and arts philanthropy. In a way, his material legacy aligns with the themes of hidden labor seen in his life and autopsy. His fortune was a tool, not a status symbol. It quietly enabled others to thrive, much like his mentorship in film, rather than drawing attention to himself. This intersection of wealth and mortality also invites reflection on legacy. Assets can preserve influence, fund causes, and secure comfort for loved ones, but they cannot preserve health or prevent death. Redford's autopsy, paired with his financial life, offers a compelling duality. A man whose material success and cultural impact were enormous, yet whose body remained vulnerable and human. In this tension, there is a lesson about balance. Wealth can amplify influence, but it does not exempt anyone from the universal truths of fragility and mortality. Contradictions between public image and reality. Robert Redford's public image was the very definition of Hollywood perfection. He was the charming, ruggedly handsome star whose presence seemed effortless, a man who could command the screen with a single glance. For decades, audiences admired him not just for his acting, but for the aura of vitality, sophistication, and integrity that surrounded him. Yet, as the autopsy reveals, this polished exterior hid a far more complex reality. A body quietly bearing the weight of decades of work, stress, and the inexorable passage of time. This contrast between image and reality is striking. On screen, Redford was vitality personified, dashing, athletic, and seemingly immune to the frailties that afflict ordinary humans. Off-screen, however, his life was not free from the ordinary human toll of aging, stress, and subtle chronic conditions. The autopsy paints a picture of a man whose arteries, organs, and neurological systems quietly bore the cumulative effects of a lifetime spent in the relentless glare of fame. While fans saw the icon, the public persona, the truth was that Redford's body was vulnerable, a hidden struggle largely invisible to the outside world. Redford's environmental advocacy and love of adventure add another layer to this contradiction. He appeared outdoorsy, health-conscious, and in tune with nature, a figure who seemed to embody the promise of longevity. Yet the autopsy underscores that even a life filled with hiking, sailing, and skiing could not fully protect him from the subtle accumulating consequences of age, stress, and intense professional demands. His public image of invulnerability was not dishonest, but incomplete. It celebrated his vitality while obscuring the quiet, inevitable effects of human fragility. Hollywood itself amplifies these contradictions. Actors are expected to appear timeless, energetic, and resilient, regardless of what is happening behind the scenes. Redford managed this balancing act masterfully. His charisma, intellect, and carefully cultivated persona masked the hidden costs of a life in constant motion. Long shoots, press obligations, travel, and the pressure to maintain relevance are not merely professional responsibilities. They are physical and mental demands that leave invisible traces. In this light, the autopsy reveals a truth that is often hidden in Hollywood lore. The human body, no matter how disciplined or admired, cannot remain untouched by decades of relentless performance. Redford's personal life also reflected a similar duality. Known for his charm and sociability, he was deeply private, protective of his family and personal moments. While the public saw a polished, charismatic figure, those closest to him understood that maintaining this persona required energy, discipline, and occasional sacrifice. The subtle health challenges revealed posthumously suggest that part of this effort came at a quiet cost to his body, an ongoing negotiation between outward perfection and inward vulnerability. Even his legacy in filmmaking reflects this duality. Redford created spaces for others to thrive, founding the Sundance Institute and supporting independent cinema, yet his own journey was physically and emotionally taxing. The contrast between his public generosity and private human struggle is emblematic of the broader tension revealed in the autopsy. The difference between the myth of immortality that fame can create and the reality of human fragility that fame cannot erase. Ultimately, these contradictions deepen our understanding of Redford. The man audiences adored was both legendary and human, celebrated and vulnerable. The dissonance between image and reality does not diminish his legacy. It enhances it, offering a nuanced portrait of a man who achieved extraordinary cultural impact while quietly contending with the universal burdens of life and aging. Redford's story reminds us that even icons are not immune to the fragility of the human condition, and that the most compelling figures are often those who navigate the tension between outward perfection and inward vulnerability. In examining these contradictions, we gain more than insight into Redford's health or biography. We glimpse the human cost of myth-making itself. The polished Hollywood legend, the environmentalist adventurer, the charismatic actor. All these images coexisted with the subtle realities revealed only after death. It is in this space between perception and reality that Redford's humanity shines brightest, reminding us that greatness is as much about resilience and integrity as it is about appearance. The legacy after death. Robert Redford's passing marked the end of an era, but his legacy is far from finished. The autopsy may have revealed disturbing details about his health, but it also casts a new light on a life lived with passion, dedication, and remarkable influence. Redford was more than a Hollywood icon. He was a cultural force, a pioneer of independent cinema, and a tireless advocate for the environment. His contributions continue to shape film, activism, and the way we think about fame and human vulnerability. At the heart of his legacy is his cinematic work. Films like Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid, The Sting, and All the President's Men are not just masterpieces of storytelling, they are windows into the eras they depict, and into the skill of an actor who could convey depth, charm, and authenticity simultaneously. Redford's presence on screen was magnetic, yet understated, a balance of charisma and restraint that allowed audiences to connect deeply with the characters he portrayed. His performances remain benchmarks of excellence, inspiring actors and filmmakers for generations. Beyond acting, Redford's vision for independent filmmaking transformed the industry. The Sundance Institute and Sundance Film Festival provided a platform for voices that might otherwise have been silenced by Hollywood's commercial machinery. By supporting emerging directors, writers, and actors, Redford ensured that storytelling would continue to evolve, diversify, and challenge mainstream conventions. This aspect of his legacy may be less visible than his on-screen heroics, but it is no less impactful. It reflects a commitment to art, creativity, and community that endures long after his death. Redford's environmental advocacy is another cornerstone of his legacy. His love of rivers, wilderness, and sustainable living was more than a personal interest, it was a call to action. Through public campaigns, documentaries, and private initiatives, he championed conservation at a time when environmental awareness was not mainstream. In retrospect, the autopsy adds poignancy to this advocacy. The man who spent decades outdoors, who celebrated nature's vitality, was ultimately subject to the same fragility as any human being. His work reminds us that environmental stewardship is both urgent and personal. It's about preserving life, including the lives of those who love the natural world. The revelations from his autopsy may alter the public's perception of Redford, but in ways that deepen, rather than diminish, his legacy. They humanize a figure often seen as mythic, reminding us that resilience, creativity, and influence coexist with vulnerability, mortality, and struggle. By confronting these hidden realities, audiences are invited to appreciate Redford not just as an untouchable icon, but as a human being who navigated fame, work, and life with grace, courage, and integrity. Finally, Redford's legacy is enduring because of the lessons embedded in his life story. Fame, talent, and success do not exempt anyone from the fragility of the human body or the inevitability of aging. Yet, through dedication, passion, and purpose, one can leave an imprint that transcends mortality. Redford's films, advocacy, and mentorship continue to shape culture, and the lessons from his life and death offer insight, inspiration, and reflection for anyone who aspires to live fully and authentically. In the end, Robert Redford's legacy is a blend of brilliance and humanity. The autopsy reveals the hidden truths of a life lived intensely, yet it also underscores the enduring impact of a man whose contributions, creativity, and moral compass continue to resonate. He leaves behind more than films and festivals. He leaves a blueprint for how to live, work, and engage with the world while embracing both strength and vulnerability. The legend endures, enriched by the knowledge of the human being behind it. Fame may have looked effortless on screen, but what unseen effort did it really demand of Redford? The hidden labor of legend. Redford's autopsy doesn't just tell us about a body worn by time, it uncovers the invisible machinery behind a cultural myth. What fascinates and unsettles is how carefully curated personas mask the relentless, unseen labor that fuels public brilliance. Every iconic role, every flawless press appearance, and every carefully timed public gesture carried a cost, quiet, cumulative, and ultimately physical. Redford's body, as revealed in the report, was a ledger of decades of invisible work, the tension, the stress, the private discipline that most fans never see. This perspective challenges the way we idolize figures in pop culture. We often elevate celebrities into archetypes, immortal, untouchable, larger than life. But the autopsy peels back the illusion, revealing that every moment of grace and every display of charm required enormous energy and endurance behind the scenes. Redford's life becomes a reminder that legend is not effortless. It is meticulously constructed and sustained, often at great personal cost. The glamour of fame is inseparable from hidden toil. It also reframes our understanding of mortality. Redford's age, achievements, and vitality led many to assume invincibility. But the human body has limits, and his final chapter exposes that even the most disciplined, celebrated lives cannot escape the quiet inevitabilities of biology. The striking contrast between his public image and private vulnerability underscores an uncomfortable truth. The stories we tell about heroes are always partial, leaving out the silent sacrifices that make the myth possible. Another compelling angle emerges in the intersection of personal choice and unavoidable consequence. Redford embraced risk through adventure, through intense work, through environmental advocacy and independent filmmaking. These choices enriched his life and legacy, but the autopsy hints at their unseen costs. It's a meditation on trade-offs. A life of significance often comes with hidden strain, a complexity rarely captured in biographies or media narratives. The brilliance is inseparable from the burden. Finally, the broader lesson isn't moralistic, it's humanistic. Redford's story reminds us to respect the invisible labor behind greatness, to recognize vulnerability beneath perfection, and to reconsider our assumptions about those we admire. His autopsy transforms curiosity into insight. It isn't just about death. It's about the intricate interplay between myth, effort, and mortality, and how even legends navigate the delicate balance between outward brilliance and inner fragility. In this sense, Redford leaves a legacy that is richer, more nuanced, and profoundly human. A man who taught the world not only through his art and activism, but also through the silent testimony of a life fully, intensely, and unflinchingly lived. What can you say about Redford's life and legacy? Share your thoughts in the section below and click on the subscribe button for more exclusive Hollywood stories.